Hello everyone, I'm glad to greet you on behalf of UkrAgroConsult company. We are an analytical agency providing expertise in agricultural markets of Ukraine and the Black Sea region. For over 25 years, we have been aiding agri companies in making effective decisions based on our analysis, forecasts, and research. We will be glad to share with you some of our latest reports on grain and oilseed markets. You may find a link with detailed information just below this video. By the way, there is a special offer within our subscription campaign for the next year. You can subscribe for 3, 6, or 12 months with a 15% discount by December 15th. Take your chance and be always aware of the key developments of the Black Sea market. Also, we have launched early bird registration for our next event, International Conference Black Sea Grain, which is scheduled for April 6th, 7th next year in Kyiv, Ukraine. And we invite you to join and look forward to meet you in person. So today we will talk about the Black Sea wheat market. We will share initial forecast and price estimates for the next season, and we will cover several countries of the Black Sea region, such as Ukraine, Russia, Bulgaria, and Romania. We will find out the estimates for sowing areas, where the impact on yields and prices, as well as if a further surge in prices is expected. All this will be covered in a bigger detail by my colleagues. So I'm glad to introduce grain market analyst at UkrAgroConsult, Marina Marinic, who will make a presentation about Ukrainian and Russian wheat market prospects. Marina, you're welcome.
So let's talk about current situation in Black Sea grain market and what can we expect in next season. The current season is notable for record high prices. There are many reasons for such a situation. Low carryover stocks, strong crop decrease in Canada, and Russian crop falling short of expectations, and also high demand from main importers, some of which also experienced own crop failures, such as Iran and Turkey. The last time such high prices were observed was in 2012. At the end of last week, wheat quotations at the Chicago and Euronext significantly declined, which affected the prices of Black Sea wheat as well. It is not clear. It is not yet clear how long the downward sentiment will last, as volatility remains high and multitude of multi-directional factors are affecting the price level. This year, grain prices in Ukraine have been growing following world prices, but it is needed to compare their parity. In August, corn became cheaper than wheat, and starting from November, corn was cheaper than barley, driven by harvesting progress and a gradual reduction in barley stocks. Last time this happened in October 2020. Nevertheless, the pressure on prices from harvesting of a new record corn crop in Ukraine was partially offset by the rise in drying costs, overstaffed elevators, and the burden on logistics. As a result, prices are $40 higher than a year ago, although last year was a poor crop. The record grain harvest in Ukraine this season allowed to increase exports. In the first 4 months of the season, farmers were much more willing to sell barley and wheat as they expected a record corn crop, for which they would have to empty their warehouses. In this regard, the rate of export, volume of exports of spring grain reached record levels. In July-October, Ukraine exported 53% of the expected export and 51% of export potential of barley. Moreover, the export of barley for 4 months of the current season exceeded the volumes for all previous seasons, with the exception of marketing years 16-17 and 19-20. The increase in wheat exports was mainly due to main buyers, Indonesia, Turkey, and Egypt, who increased their purchases compared to the previous season. However, if we look at a monthly breakdown, we can clearly see the decline in shipments towards Indonesia, Bangladesh, and other Asian countries, which began gradually switching to Australian origin. At the same time, exports to MENA countries, Middle East and North Africa, increased in October, especially to Egypt and Saudi Arabia. However, Ukrainian exporters should not relax, as the new harvest of Argentina is on the way. According to traders, Argentine origins have prevailed in recent tenders of Algeria and Turkey. Strong competition in MENA countries for Ukraine is also from Russian and European origin, because on the CNF basis, their offer is often more attractive due to higher rates of port charges in Ukrainian ports. At the same time, Russian exporters do not want to lose their market share and are trying to offer their grain at the lowest possible prices, despite the current floating tax, which has already exceeded the level of the constant tax of last season. It was 50 euros last season, which is nearly $60. Then export volume fell sharply from 4.5 million metric tons to 1.15 million metric tons. In addition, the Agrarian Ministry of Russia again confirmed the introduction of wheat export quota in second half of the current season. Similar export restriction was already in force last season. However, then it applied not only to wheat but to other grains as well, and equaled 17.5 million metric tons for the period from February 15th till the end of June. The government explains the imposition of tariff regulation on grain export by the need to lower domestic food prices, but food inflation in Russia is still progressing. There are also concerns that farmers who have lost profits due to artificially restrained wheat prices may lose incentive to increase area under regulated crops and may save on fertilizers and plant protection products next season. This is fraught not only with a yield drop, but also with crop quality decline. Returning to Ukraine, namely to Ukrainian barley, most of the main importers increased their purchases compared to last season, especially Turkey and Iran. They didn't purchase Ukrainian barley last season at this period, and for a third of the current season, together they have already imported over 700,000 metric tons. With regard to monthly shipments, the situation is similar here. Exports to Saudi Arabia have dropped sharply due to strong competition from Australia, which harvested a good crop this year but cannot supply it to China because of the prohibitively high tax. Influenced by high demand, UkrZaliznytsia has raised the cost of renting of grain hoppers to a record level over the past few years. And also driven by rapidly rising world gas prices, fertilizer prices in Ukraine also increased. The rise in production costs will negatively affect the margins of agricultural producers next year. According to preliminary estimates from the Agrarian Ministry of Ukraine, the sowing area for winter wheat will be 6.65 million hectares, which is 3.6% less than last year. As for barley, it is more than 1 million hectares, which is 10.2% lower than last year. However, it is worth recalling that the estimate of the sowing areas of winter crops from Agrarian Ministry was greatly underestimated last year. A more accurate estimate will be published by Statistical Service in February 2022. Due to late spring, there was a shift in all agricultural work, so winter sowing this year was late. The weather conditions this autumn were somewhat worse than usual. September and October turned out to be colder than normal, which slowed down the vegetation of winter crops. In November, on the contrary, the air temperature rose several times over 15 degrees and even higher in the southern regions. Warm weather would have helped the crop developing, but the soil moisture in Ukraine was insufficient for the optimal development of winter crops. That's why in some areas of the southern regions, sparse seedlings are observed, and the sprouted crops did not have time to develop enough before the onset of cold weather. Therefore, part of the crops were weak when entering the winter. Therefore, spring fertilization will be especially important, which, given the rise in fertilizer prices, will be more difficult to implement. As for Russia, namely the Southern Federal District, if we are talking about winter wheat, then the situation here is much better. Yields can be expected at the level of the long-term average values. If we talk about forward prices for the new wheat harvest in Ukraine, now there are already proposals that reach $300 CPT, which is only $20 lower than spot prices. For comparison, in the last marketing year, wheat forward prices provided in February did not exceed $230 CPT. UkrAgroConsult will continue to monitor long-term weather forecasts and the state of winter crops, as the weather remains the main factor determining the quality and quantity of the future harvest. Thank you for your attention.
Many thanks, Marina. And now we go further to Romanian and Bulgarian market, which will be covered by Helen Gesova, grain market analyst at UkrAgroConsult. Helen, please.
Thank you, Julia. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Now let me tell you a few words about some competition which is existing in the Black Sea region and which is coming from our European neighbors, Romania and Bulgaria. This season, thanks to the record grain production, these two countries sharply increased exports to the world market and provided some competition even for Russia and Ukraine. In 2021-22, together, these two countries will be able to export record volume of wheat, about 12.6 million tons, including 7.1 million tons of Romanian origin. This is 5 million tons more than last season. Export surplus is quite considerable, which draws more attention to these countries and to crop prospects for the next season. The question is whether they can produce even more, especially on the back of such attractive prices. Major competition comes from Romania, which is currently holding the position #1, even among the wheat exporters of the EU. Together with Bulgaria, they account for 45% in the wheat export structure of the bloc. For comparison, the previous season, the share of these countries was only 16% as of the same date. And these countries gave the way even to such relatively smaller exporters as Lithuania and Latvia. In the beginning of previous season, trading companies of Romania decided not to put a lot of wheat on their export agenda, as sourcing from the farmers was quite tough due to the crop losses. But this season, both countries have sharply increased the exports to Asian destinations, such as South Korea and Vietnam. And in particular, Bulgaria is also very active on the market of Israel and continues to supply high volumes to the domestic market of EU as well. However, for Ukraine and Russia, competition comes from Romanian wheat on the market of Egypt. In addition to high export surplus, Russian export restrictions were of great benefit for Romania this season. Taking into account the results of the recent wheat tender, Romania has the biggest share in the sales to Egyptian gas, 44%, ousting Russia from the position #1. And this is compared to just 1% by the same date last season, which is quite impressive. This is compared to just 630,000 tons, which was exported both to gas and to private sector of Egypt during the whole previous season. The volume has already exceeded the maximum of 2014-15 and possibly can set a new all-time high. So Romania may export to Egypt about 2 million tons this season, but I doubt that Romania will remain the leader here towards the end of the season, as export potential of Russia is definitely higher. Last year, Russia managed to sell to Gazprom about 3.8 million tons of wheat. So growing competition of Romania is quite obvious, and the prospects of the new crop in the both countries are becoming more and more interesting for the market. According to the latest report of Mars Monitoring Agency, autumn weather provided good conditions for the seeding progress in the most parts of Europe, and no threat was noted for such major exporters like France and Germany. By contrast, some other regions were characterized by rain deficit, including northern Romania, and rain surplus was noted in Bulgaria, followed by rain absence afterwards. In Romania, dry conditions resulted in delays of winter wheat and rapeseed seeding. The campaign was quite prolonged in both countries. However, we expect the seeding had been completed as planned in Romania and in Bulgaria, thanks to rains in late October and November, which improved the crop emergence. Romanian farmers tend to seed even after the optimal terms, thanks to the favorable weather, and especially this season, looking at attractive market prices for wheat. The latest soil moisture map shows that water deficit is confined to northeast and colored gray here. So far, warm weather favored the development of the crops seeded after the optimal terms, but excessive temperatures begin to worry farmers, as plants do not acquire the needed frost tolerance. In case the sharp decrease of temperatures and absence of snow cover, some frost damage may be done to plants. All these factors are closely watched in our Black Sea reports. In my final slide, I'd like to show that despite Romania and Bulgaria are the EU suppliers, their export prices usually follow the general Black Sea tendencies. New crop prices for the Black Sea wheat are heard now at $305 per metric tons FOB, the level which was achieved only in September this year. Compared to July last year, the prices were cheaper, and the market includes weather risks for the whole region, and as well as impact of export restrictions in Russia. And now I want to thank you for your attention and say that UkrAgroConsult is monitoring the Black Sea crop prospects closely in its reports. For now, we expect the final winter crop areas to be published soon for Romania and Bulgaria, and we'll make our first S&Ds for the next season. And soon we will be able to present to you our expectations of grain production and export potential for the next season. Hope it will be interesting to you. Thank you very much for your attention. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Helen. Now we can see a much broader picture of the market. So at this point, we would like to thank you for your attention. We hope that this market outlook will promote your understanding of the wheat market drivers and will support your plans and decisions. If you wish to receive regular market updates and reports, leave your contact in the form just below this video and we will get in touch shortly. Our team wishes you successful completion of the current year and bright prospects for the next one. Stay tuned. All the best.